20 points, 14 rebounds, 3 steals, 3 blocks, 3 assists.
Is this the dagger?
Kawhi Leonard, who are you, man?
Kawhi Leonard.
While longer tenured players become locks for jersey retirements, guys who join different teams may never get the honor. Let's look at some players with possible jersey retirements in the air and see if they could get the recognition. For each team, I'll argue for and against retirement, then give a final verdict before examining the next franchise. Let's look at Kawhi Leonard's career, which includes the San Antonio Spurs, Toronto Raptors, and Los Angeles Clippers. For a team that saw such a long stretch of successful basketball, it's a surprise that the best season the Spurs have had record-wise was the last year of their franchise GOAT's career. But if anything, it shows who Kawhi was post-Tim Duncan. San Antonio believed in their superstar, and that belief was justified. Drafted in 2011, Leonard was viewed as an unpolished player with defensive prowess. Just one season later, at 21, he's guarding 2013 LeBron in the finals. Fast forward another year, and he's a finals MVP who played a massive part in their rematch gentleman's sweep. In 2015, Duncan was 38, Manu was 37, and TP was 32. What did Kawhi do? He won Defensive Player of the Year at 23, as his offensive game took another step. At 24, he was a back-to-back DPOY winner who led his team to a 67-15 record. Just 7 teams have finished with a better win percentage in NBA history. It's a historical record that sadly gets overshadowed by another from that same season. How did he excel individually? He won his second DPOY, was second in MVP voting, got a first-team All-NBA appearance, was an All-Star starter, and made the All-Defensive first team. And finally, Kawhi Leonard, in his last real season with the team, led them 6 wins short of matching the record of the KD Warriors, was an All-Star starter, was third in MVP voting, received All-NBA and Defensive First Teams, and was 21 points ahead of the Warriors in Game 1 of their conference finals matchup before Zaza Pachulia injured his ankle. He accomplished so much with the franchise, but his time was short, just 7 years. To see if his short tenure negatively impacts his case, let's look at the all-time leaderboards for Spurs players. Total points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, games played, playoff games played, games won, and playoff games won. Kawhi is at least in the top 25 all-time for every statistic. He's in the top 15 for 7 of the 9 stats, and in the top 10 all-time for total points, playoff games played, playoff games won, and steals. It's great to review this info, but it's not why Spurs fans are against retiring number 2. Kawhi and the franchise had a very public falling out due to his health, which led to a trade off of the team. Both sides were throwing subliminals. Their team doctors said he was healthy, while outside specialists had him rehab longer. Kawhi kept getting injured. Franchise legends questioned Kawhi's drive. His contract was ending soon, and the team was losing games. I get why fans were irritated in the moment, but it's almost ridiculous to hold this grudge still. The decision to move off of Kawhi has been a positive for both sides. Leonard was able to win a championship and find a long-term place to play. San Antonio now has one of the best young talents of all time and a bright future because of how the franchise maneuvered after the trade. He didn't feel ready to play, and that decision was probably the right thing to do. Look at his career since. He's dealt with injury after injury since the conference finals. So you're gonna tell me one of the best players your team has ever seen can't get his jersey retired even if his worries were justified, while the team finds themselves with so much potential because of his absence? Traded to the team on draft night, a project player transformed into one of the best defenders in the league, became their finals MVP with multiple Defensive Player of the Years, and evolved into a two-way juggernaut. He contributed so much in so little time with the Spurs, but his tenure with the franchise ended awkwardly. San Antonio shouldn't let this stumble out the door kill any chance of retirement. They should do the right thing and put number 2 in the rafters. Kawhi was talented enough to get a jersey retirement, but does he deserve it? Let's look at the 10 numbers that have been honored. There are the obvious choices from the 10 players, like Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and George Gervin. Legends that spend the vast majority, if not their entire careers, with the franchise. At the same time, there are also names you wouldn't immediately think of that have retired jerseys. Players like Avery Johnson and Johnny Moore have their numbers retired. Both of them were role players in San Antonio, yet they were treated like franchise legends. Why? When the franchise needed to rely on them, these players showed up. In 1999, when the Spurs were on the brink of winning their first ever championship, who hit the game-winning shot to bring the title home? it was not Tim Duncan or David Robinson. It was Avery Johnson. What player did Coach Popovich call a representative of all that is right about professional sports? Not Tony Parker or George Gervin, it was Avery Johnson. When the Spurs lost George Gervin, who was at that time considered the best Spur in franchise history, Johnny Moore helped hold it down until the new era. When San Antonio's back was against the wall, players who've had their numbers retired helped out. What happened when a franchise that made the playoffs every year since 1998 needed its best player to hold it down? Kawhi asked for a trade. He wasn't there for the franchise when they needed him, so why would they idolize him like the others who were there for the Spurs? Greg Popovich, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili decided not to mention him in their Hall of Fame speeches. After he was traded to the Spurs, De'Aaron Fox almost took Kawhi's old number before he changed his mind. Fox didn't change to 4 because fans or because the front office reminded him of Kawhi. He chose it because it's his wife's old number. Then, they gave his number away to Dylan Harper. When LeBron's in Cleveland or when Westbrook's in OKC, they get cheers and standing ovations. When Kawhi plays in that San Antonio stadium, he gets booed because he wasn't there when the team needed him. He did not represent what it meant to be a Spur to the front office, the legends, and the fans. And that's why he shouldn't get his jersey number retired. There are two verdicts I could give. One that's personal and one that's realistic. Personally, I think it's absurd that this is even a debate. Role players have gotten numbers retired, but a finals MVP is debatable? Realistically, I don't see it happening anytime soon. The fans still boo, the legends have been acting like he doesn't exist, and the front office gave the number away. And it's a shame. How many active players have done more with the franchise than Kawhi on the Spurs? It may happen when the dust settles, but a jersey retirement would surprise me. A good surprise, but a surprise nonetheless. Heading into the 2018 offseason, the morale surrounding the Raptors was at an all-time low. After getting swept by LeBron and the Cavaliers in 2017, Toronto improved to the first seed with the best record in franchise history. Unfortunately for them, LeBron, his game-winning buzzer beater, and an even worse Cavs roster swept the Raptors again. In the final pressers, Kyle Lowry called the season a wasted year. Fred VanVleet told reporters, "These playoffs will be in the back of our minds all summer." DeMar labeled it the toughest, most frustrating, difficult, lowest feeling he's had. The Raptors look stronger than ever, but they still failed to get past the LeBron-sized mountain. Things needed to change, and Toronto's front office rolled the dice. They would trade their lottery pick turned All-NBA player DeMar DeRozan for 1 year of Kawhi. A player who was in some drama before he left his old team, missed basically all of the 2018 season, and had 1 year left on his contract. So, how did this potential dumpster fire of a decision play out? Kawhi played 73% of the regular season, finishing as an All-Star and an All-NBA second-team member, with votes for MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. With 58 wins, they were behind just the Bucks record-wise. They found themselves pitted against the Orlando Magic in the first round. With newfound optimism, ready for the postseason, the Magic shocked the Raptors in their first game of the playoffs, beating them 104-101. DJ Augustine lit them up with 25 in the game winner. Kyle Lowry, the second best player on the team, finished the game with 0 points. After embarrassing losses in 2018 and 2017, would this year see the same result? Is this franchise cursed? Is our future doomed? They won every game after. Their next opponent was the Philadelphia 76ers. The 2019 Sixers might be the best Philly team in the Joel Embiid era. This roster had a future MVP, a playoff riser who would lead decent rosters to finals appearances, an all-star who played some of the best defense in the league, with quality players like JJ Redick and Tobias Harris on the wing. This series went back and forth. Toronto looked to build momentum after the first win of the series, but the Sixers went up 2-1. The Raptors won a close Game 4 and a blowout in Game 5. At this point, the Raptors were up 3-2, but they couldn't finish the job in Philly. With the home court advantage, Toronto's championship hopes were on the line. The game went back and forth. For every Kawhi pull-up in the fourth quarter, the 76ers responded with an Embiid move or a Jimmy Butler drive. A Jimmy drive was exactly what Philly needed to tie the game 90-90 with 4.2 seconds left on the clock. Could the Raptors survive overtime? At this point in the game, nearly all of Toronto's offense came from Kawhi. 13 of the 23 points they got in the fourth were from Leonard. While Jimmy and Embiid were working in tandem, the Raptors were so Kawhi dependent. After embarrassing losses in 2018 and 2017, would this year see the same result for the Raptors? Is the franchise cursed? Is our future doomed?
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger? Game! Series! Toronto has won!
After an electric Game 7, the Raptors quickly prepared to face the well-rested 24-year-old MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks. With the best record in the NBA, the Bucks were new to this level of the postseason, but they were hungry. Game 1 saw another back-and-forth match, but this one didn't go their way. In the fourth quarter, the Raptors put up 17. Milwaukee had 32, but won by just 8. With the Bucks having home court advantage, a loss so winnable like this can kill your season. Game 2 saw a 22-point blowout. The Bucks were up 2-0. After embarrassing losses in 2018 and 2017, would this year see the same result? Is this franchise cursed? Is our future doomed?
Final series. Bucks now lead it 2-1. It's a thriller here tonight. Winning the first two in Milwaukee in convincing fashion. Raptors take 2 here in Toronto. Van Vliet on fire. And Toronto has taken a 3-2 lead. Middleton goes behind the back and lost it. Lowry with the steal. He has Giannis behind him. Gets to Leonard. A facial by Kawhi Leonard. Although the Raptors were just 2 games behind the Milwaukee Bucks in the regular season, they're off the bench to celebrate.
4 wins in a row. 4 wins in a row against the MVP with the best record in the NBA. 4 wins in a row led them to the franchise's first finals. 4 wins in a row for them to match up with one of, if not the greatest NBA dynasty of all time. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Boogie Cousins, a championship bench, and Kevin Durant. A team whose biggest weakness was center added a dude who would get buckets faster than he got texts. When those media day pictures came out, a three-peat felt all but inevitable. If you were sick of the Warriors, you were in the ER at this point. Do I have to say it again?
The Warriors just inbound, and that's it. There's a new NBA champion, and it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions. The Raptors, the 2019 NBA champs.
In the first round, Kawhi averaged 30, 9, and 4, with 1.7 steals and 0.7 blocks on 61% true shooting. I just lied. He didn't average that in the Orlando series. He averaged that for the entire playoffs. They played 24 games in the postseason, and Kawhi had 35 or more points 8 times in that span. There was a 33% chance Kawhi would drop at least 35 on your team. After the 2017 playoffs, Raptors president Masai Ujiri said this team needed a culture reset. He was right, but they didn't get their culture reset until the 2018 offseason. During the summer, Ujiri made one of the biggest deals in modern history that led to one of the greatest championship runs in modern history. In just a year, the Raptors went from LeBronto to champions. Kawhi Leonard was the culture reset. Are we serious? He played in Toronto for a year. A year! When you include the playoffs, Kawhi played 84 games for the Raptors. 84. Cat has played for the Knicks for longer. Carmelo played 6 more games for the Thunder. Harden got injured and sat out, but he played more games on the Nets. He was on the team for a year. Obviously, the championship meant a lot to the franchise, and he was on track to get his jersey retired, but it was just 1 year. And let's not forget that the Warriors lost Klay and KD in that series. Don't misconstrue a hypothetical reality where he did stay with what actually happened. He only played for a year and beat an injured team to win the championship. It's not a complicated or complex reason as to why he won't get his jersey retired. It's simple. He played just 1 season with the franchise and left in the offseason. And guess what? 3 people have worn the number since. It was just a year, but what a year to have. His performance in 2019 was generational, and enough for number 2's retirement. First off, Toronto has already set the precedent of a retired number that they allowed to be used after the player left. The second thing I want to say is a question. When discussing the history of the Toronto Raptors, how many players have impacted the franchise more than Kawhi? Vince Carter, of course. I'd mentioned DeMar and Lowry, and some might disagree, but I'll give you Chris Bosh. Who else? What Kawhi was able to accomplish in that 82-game span may never be duplicated again by any player for any team, and that's worthy of a jersey retirement. first idea I had for YouTube was this series, and one of the first players that came to mind was Kawhi. A few years ago, I wrote this. This Clippers era was never able to just exist, living with the massive expectations they were given on day one, and now cast by the shadow of SGA, we're never able to look at this team in a vacuum. Since then, Harden joined the team, Paul George left, the Thunder won the championship, and the Clippers haven't won a playoff series. How I felt a handful of years ago is more accurate than ever, and this team has seen plenty of change with little to show for it. This is why we have to establish 3 things to make the case for Kawhi's retirement. 1. The Clippers are the most storied franchise in the NBA. I'm not saying this to make fun of the Clippers. I'm saying this to frame Kawhi's tenure. The only number retired by the Clippers is the league-wide 6 for Bill Russell. There isn't this massive precedent set by older legends like there is for the Celtics or Lakers, so it will be easier to get a number retired. 2. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin will get their numbers retired someday. It's safe to assume that they will be the first 2 former Clippers who will get the honor. And since they are 2 of the most impactful players in franchise history, we can use them as some sort of precedent to compare Kawhi to. 3. Kawhi will more than likely retire with the Clippers. He left the champions to be in his home state and recently signed an extension. They can trade him like Blake, but I think he will end his career in Los Angeles. If we note that the standard is low for the Clippers, that CP3 and Blake are the best the franchise has seen, and that Kawhi will probably stay on the roster, let's compare Kawhi's tenure with the Lob City guys and see how much work is needed. Kawhi has received 3 All-Star nods. Chris and Blake got 5. Leonard has 3 All-NBA teams. Blake received 4, CP3 got 5. Blake has no all-defensive teams, Chris has 6, and Kawhi has 2. On a strictly accolade basis, Kawhi isn't completely far off from the apex of Clippers history. Kawhi turned 34 this summer. If there are 3 or 4 years left in his career, with a couple of them at this level of play, it's not crazy for him to get his number retired. The arguments for San Antonio and Toronto are much simpler than this one. Kawhi was amazing for the Spurs, but he left on awkward terms. Kawhi was amazing for the Raptors, but he left early. Put old expectations to the side and look at Kawhi's future next to the precedent of success before him. The Clippers will be the team he's been on the longest, and they will retire his jersey. The entire case for his retirement is based on weak accolades and unlikely potential, while his tenure, in actuality, has been a combination of injuries and disappointment. Let's speed run through his time in LA. His first year starts really great, but his team blows a 3-1 lead in the second round. Year 2 looked promising until he tore his ACL in the playoffs. Year 3 passes as he rehabs. In year 4, they're a playoff team without home court advantage and lose in the first round. In year 5, they're a playoff team with home court advantage but lose in the first round. In year 6, they're a playoff team without home court advantage and lose in the first round. With an ACL tear in 2021, a torn meniscus in 2023, and lingering injuries, it's not like he's doing much as an individual in the regular season. Out of the 472 games for the Clippers he could have played in, he's missed 206. Combine that with a couple of All-Stars, and that's the base for retirement? To be fair, the case for retirement isn't dependent on just his current resume. It's dependent on those 3 variables. The Clippers need lower expectations than the average team for a jersey retirement, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin need to have somewhat comparable tenures to current Kawhi, and Kawhi has to retire with LA. The Clippers do have one of the weaker legacies, but that doesn't mean they'll make such a grand gesture for anyone who found a shred of success, especially when the retirements up next are Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, 2 players who do not have comparable tenures to Kawhi. Lob City revitalized the franchise, and this era has been underwhelming with its injuries, playoff failures, and dwindling optimism. That dwindling optimism can be the reason Kawhi is off the team, negating the third element of the argument. This is one of the oldest lineups in the league, and they haven't seen the second round since 2021. If you're the front office and you plan to rebuild the roster, one of the first players gone is the injury-prone 34-year-old who's getting paid $50 million a year. The Clippers held a private jersey ceremony for Blake Griffin and then traded him to Detroit 4 months later. They won't give Kawhi a fat contract extension or keep a bad contract on the team out of respect. They'll cut their losses if that means long-term success. This leaves him with a weak resume, a few years left in his career, and as the face of one of the most disappointing eras in modern NBA history. The Clippers have not done enough, and Kawhi has not done enough for a jersey to be retired. There's an elephant in the room, and that decision was on purpose. For those who don't know, Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers are currently under investigation for allegedly giving Kawhi money under the rug in exchange for signing with Los Angeles in 2019. We don't know what will happen until the NBA finishes its investigation, but in all honesty, any possibility of retirement is seriously damaged with this scandal, regardless of the outcome. The likelihood was already low, but this investigation casts this pessimistic look on an already weak tenure. The evidence found by Pablo Torre is strong, and some people have already made up their minds. The investigation, combined with the forgettable time in Los Angeles, is why I think we won't get the retirement. I, like so many, was so excited to see how the PG Kawhi years would play out. Kawhi is one of my favorite players of all time, and it's a shame to admit that this era in his career has been a miss. With the final verdicts decided, here are the percentages I'd give for each franchise retiring Kawhi's number. I'd say the likelihood for the Spurs retiring his number is at 35%. Fans boo him, the franchise gave his number away, and the franchise moved on. It could happen in 15 plus years, but I don't see it happening soon after his retirement. The percentage for the Raptors is at a strong 95%. It was just for one season, but what that season did means too much to the franchise and to the fans. The team least likely to retire his number is the Los Angeles Clippers at 15%. Too many variables need to occur for the retirement to happen, and not enough good has already been done for me to confidently say retirement is likely. Kawhi's injuries derailed one of the best starts to an NBA career, and this conversation shows that. He had injury problems, so he left the Spurs. He had injury problems, so he was traded to a team he didn't want to stay on. He had injury problems, so he missed out on playoff runs and big stretches of games in LA. Every franchise he's been a part of has dealt with the flaw in his career, and only one views him like the all-time player he is. So with that said, I believe the Toronto Raptors are the only team I could confidently say will retire Kawhi Leonard's number. But hey, let me know who you think will retire his number and who should be next in this series.